Hello, folks. Good to be with you again. Mike Newmeyer here in Owings Mills, financial advisor, helping people retire. I've been doing this for over 25 years, so I've seen an awful lot, a lot of experience. Want to help you if you're getting ready for retirement. And I want to give you some pretty clear ideas. I must say I've learned a lot in 25 years. Okay, the things we thought back then are a little different than the things we think about today. Some are the same. And I made some notes here that I want to share with you. So if you're getting ready for retirement, one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they think they're not going to spend as much money in retirement. The truth of the matter is it costs more money to retire than it does to not retire. And why that is, the number one reason is because of health care. Health care costs are going up. They're going up very, very fast. And so there's competition. We've got aging population. So we have limited, medicines, this, that, and the other thing. Look at going to see a doctor today. You have to make an appointment how far in advance? It's a considerable amount of time. And what if you need a prescription? It takes time to get the prescription because you got to talk to the doctor ahead of time in many cases. So it's not as easy as it used to be, and it's going to get harder. And we're going to get older, and it's going to be annoying and difficult. So you want to remember that for sure. It's not going to get easier, and it's not going to get less expensive. It's going to get more expensive, okay? More competition for resources. You're going to see yourself doing Zoom meetings with your doctors, and a lot of time it'll be a nurse practitioner, or not a nurse practitioner, but a nurse. So all the things we think are the way they are now are not going to be the same way later. A lot of things are going to change. It's not going to get easier. So keep in mind that in every area, you have to have a surplus. What does that mean? You need more money for sure. You need more help available for sure. You need family members to be available to help you if necessary. Okay? And you have to have more time because you're going to go slower. So those are all the great things to look forward to in retirement and getting older. So, keep those things just in the background. We want to have a good retirement, don't we? We want to enjoy ourselves. We want to do all the things we've been planning to do. And in order to do those things, though, you got to be realistic about the overall conditions. So let me talk a little bit about the money, okay? So there's some people that have been in the market all their working life because they've had 401ks, etc. And maybe they had matches on those where the employer was adding 4% or something. That's great. I was talking to a fellow yesterday that is in exactly that position. And he feels he will have accumulated quite a number in another 5 or 6 years, and then he's gonna retire. Okay, let's hope it works out for him. But again, he needs to be aware of the things I've already mentioned. It's going to take more money. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more support. You're going to need a circle to rely on around you to help you and so forth and so on. You'll help them too, but it's going to take a community to help you retire in a happy, safe, comfortable manner and enjoying yourself. I often think when I go driving through the countryside here, I see a house that's very remote, and I think, what happens if the gal has a heart attack? How fast can the ambulance get to them? I think of those things because I'm dealing with people that are getting older. They're going to retire. So a lot of things go into considering how you're going to retire, what money you're going to have. You don't want to scrimp in retirement. You don't want to be worrying about your money all the time. I don't know anyone said to me, I want to worry more. No one's ever said that to me. Okay. All right. If you're leaving the money in the market like this fellow that set his money in the market all this time and he's relied on the market and he says, it goes up, it goes down. And I said, well, you never make up for the money when it went down. You know that. Yeah, I know that. But he wasn't using that money to live on in those days either. So it didn't have that much of an effect on him. Well, what happens when he's using the money from the market in retirement? Let's say the market goes down 10%. And now in a black swan in situation like we had back in 2008 and 9, it went down a lot further than that. Or back when the NASDAQ went down in 2000, it went down severely. And look how much time it took to recover. But recovering doesn't mean you got back the money you lost, does it? Okay, but if you're not retiring during that period, well, okay. So you're still working, and maybe it doesn't affect you that much, because you're not taking money out. What happens if you in a downturn? You have to pick a number. Let's say you're taking $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month out of the market to live on. So the market goes down, you're still taking that money out because you still have to live, don't you? So look what it's doing to your principal. You're lowering the principal. Now the market starts to come back, and however, it never goes back. You never make up the money you've taken out. You never make up the money it's lost. So you're living at a lower standard of living every time it goes down. Well, you might say, well, I'm old enough, I'm not worrying about that much. Okay, well, you may not worry about it, but then on the other hand, you don't want to spend the last 5 or 10 years of your life, in poverty. You don't want to be spending the last 10 of your life living on Social Security. Mentioning Social Security, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But let's go back to the market for a second. When is the last time that your broker called you on the telephone and said the market is going down? When is the last time? Now, you might have called your broker and said, what's going on in the market? The last time that the broker usually has called you is when the market's going up, and he's talking about what a great thing it is, and so forth and so on, and what a great service he's bringing to you. But the reality is he doesn't call you when it's going down. And it does go down, and it doesn't you never make up the money that you lost. Okay, so that's one thing. And then going back to the situation where you're taking money out. And let's say you're getting older and you're older, and let's pretend that you are retired, and let's pretend you and your spouse are both drawing Social Security. And all of a sudden, one of you passes away. Now you're going to get one Social Security check. So you're counting on both of those, let us say, and you were living modestly, all of a sudden you lost one of those Social Security checks. So that's could and would and oftentimes does happen. Okay, if you're still working, I hope that as you get older, anything past 50, you should start looking at the lifestyle funds. Those are the funds that invest in more conservative stocks and bonds as you get older. So, over 40, over 50, over 60, and you reallocate into those more conservative funds. But some folks don't change the way they look at the market. They could be 75 years old or 80 years old, and unless they are really an adept day trader, and I knew a fellow that was 85 to 90, and he died almost 100 years old, and he was day trading till the end, and he did very well. But how many of those are there out there? Are you one of those? Well, then I guess I'm really not talking to you. Congratulations. But I don't think you got a lot of people around you that can do the same thing. So for most of us that are not going to spend our time constantly looking at the market and playing the market and so forth and so on, and then researching, doing a lot of research. And he always did research. He spent a lot of time doing those things. His dear wife had Alzheimer's, and he said, I'm going to take care of her as long as I can physically and emotionally do it. So he was there all the time. So that's how he spent his time. When he wasn't taking care of her, he was working on his game in the market. But not all of us are in that situation. And if we aren't, and we want to do things with our spouse, or we want to do things, we want to spend our time doing things that we've always wanted to do, that's not going to be spending all our time in the market. So if you're not going to be that professional about being in the market, then you need to look at other alternatives. And these are some of the things people do. I know a fellow that came to visit me a number of years ago, and he says, I love cash. I said, well, what does that mean? I love cash. He said, I keep as much cash as I can possibly have in the bank. He said, I love cash. And he had cash in a number of banks. I said, well, let's see. Now, the highest interest rate that I've seen in, the last 10 and 15 years, I can remember seeing 6% in a CD a number of years ago. And right now it's hovering around 4% today, in 2025. Yeah, it's not quite 5%. And what's going to happen, of course, when the Fed drops rates, CDs aren't going to be earning 4 anymore. I can certainly remember when they earned 3, and we can all remember after 08 and 09 when rates were so low, and during COVID when they were so low. I remember when it was less than 1% on a regular savings account. And if you were able to get, I remember people telling me they got 2% or 2.5% on 5-year CDs. And they consider themselves very lucky. And the young bankers thought that was a good rate because they never saw a better rate. But anyway, can you live on that kind of money? You know, maybe you have so much money that you can. You know, God bless you. I'm happy for you. But most of us are not in that situation. Okay. So, hoarding cash is not typically the answer. Typically, you want to get more than just cash. Well, what about CDs? Well, again, we talked about the rates. So CDs, you know, they can perform a little under 4% or 4% right now, but that's it. What if you need more than 4%? If you've got 400,000, 4% is 16,000 a year. I don't think that's going to do you a lot of good. You know, I usually, yeah, but I got Social Security, and I got my wife's Social Security, or my husband's Social Security, and I've got this pension, and add it all up. Add it all up. How much money is it? How much money is it? And then look at your expenses and realize you've got to tack on about 4% a year on your expenses that will continue to climb at 4%. How about your Social Security? Is it going to climb at 4%? Only seen it once in a long time where it went past 4% in their annual increases. So, you know, is that even going to keep up? Those are all very good questions. You need some kind of stability in income if you're going to retire. You need income you don't have to worry about, unless you really want to worry about the market. And if you want to chase interest rates, well, you know, I remember my father doing that in the 50s. You know, and he was getting 5%. And he went from a savings loan to savings loan, you know, hunting for that 5%. And he did pretty good. This is in the 50s, of course. Okay, so what about mattress money? So how many people, yes, I mean, everybody has a little bit of cash in their house, right? We say mattress money. Well, how much is that going to be? And what's the interest you're earning on that? Doubt that you're earning anything. So anyway, let's stop for 1 second. Here I am, folks, again after a little break there. Let's talk about Social Security. If you're visiting with me, I will help you figure out what the best strategy is for you for Social Security. Okay, and it's amazing for people sometimes to find out what is the best strategy. Is it taking it early at 62 or below? Anyway, 62, 63, 64, 65, whatever it is, you could start early. Or you could wait till you get your full benefits, or you could wait until you're 70. And incidentally, those time frames are going to change. Early social will probably become 65, and full benefits will probably go to 70, and then the 70 may go to 75. So there is that risk too. You know, in other words, you know, maybe you want to consider taking it earlier than you plan to, because otherwise you have to wait longer to get increased benefits. So that's something to think about. There's a website, ss.gov. You can go there and actually create an account of your own, and you can answer some questions, and you can see some alternative plans, okay? So that's something that you want to think about, Social Security. Now, I want to talk about something that almost nobody has ever heard of. It's called, and incidentally, these aren't all my solutions. I have a more dramatic solution for you in a few minutes. How many of you have heard of a 72T? 72T. It's an IRS code, okay? So what is a 72T? Well, let's say hypothetically that you want to retire early. And you say, well, I can't take my IRA money out until I'm 59 and a half without a penalty. Or I can't take my 401k money, and the same rule, right? Okay. Well, what if you were actually going to retire early and you wanted to get income from those things? You can use a thing called a 72T. And incidentally, you can do that and you can still work if you want to. So what is a 72T? It's a plan, and we've done these over and over. It's a plan where you take your IRA money and you take substantially equal payments. So that means the same amount of money every month. And they take the amount of money that you have going into it, and they figure out, with all their algorithms and so forth, computer systems, how much money you should take per month based on probable longevity. And you have to stick with that number. Okay, you have to stick with that number. You run it and see if you like the number, and if you really want to retire, you can do that. Or you can do that and continue to work. But that money is dedicated to that 72T. For a lot of folks, it makes sense. For a lot of folks, it doesn't make sense. But it's a really interesting alternative that very, very few advisors will ever tell you about. But that's there. On my career, and I've been doing this for 26 years, I've probably done this 40 or 50 times. So it's not done that often, but it is always there. And I have made that suggestion to people where they had health issues and so forth and so on, and their health issues were getting worse, and their expectancy for longevity was contracting. And but that's not the only time. But incidentally, these were originally designed for first responders that could retire up to 20 years or something, that sort of thing, or the military. And also for sports figures, because their careers never lasted that long. So what were they going to do? With their retirement money, for we call qualified money, IRA money, retirement money, and so forth. So we've got the 72T, and I'm more than happy to review that with you. Okay, so that's that. Now, but what's the most important thing you can do for people that don't want to lose money? They're not crazy about leaving a lot of money in the market. They don't want the volatility. They don't want to have to watch it all the time. They don't want to have to pay fees. A lot of fees. Mutual funds are loaded with fees. A lot of things have a lot of fees. And they don't want to have to work with a broker. Maybe they like doing a little bit in the market and they really want to do it themselves through Schwab or some such thing. God bless you. I always tell people as they move towards retirement, just don't put more money in the market than you are willing to lose. That sounds pretty dramatic, and hopefully you won't lose anything. But that's a good way to think about it. It's the same as gambling. I know people that gamble for fun, and they never take more money to the track or to the gambling halls and so forth, the casinos, with more money than they're willing to lose. Okay, so it still stays to be a hobby, and it's not a serious problem. Okay, now what we have for people, I will call private pensions, and they run the same way a pension does. You put money in. Let's say we take your 401k, we put it into one of these plans, and then you can start income from that. Now the beauty of it is you can never run out of income. You can never run out of income. It is lifetime income. I remember somebody said to me, well, how long does it last? I said, I don't know how long you're going to live. But as long as you live, and as long as your partner lives, there will always be income. So if one passes, the other person gets the income for the rest of their life. So let's say you've got a 401k and your wife or your husband doesn't have any of those. Then what happens is, or even if they have one, it doesn't make any difference. Whatever you're getting per month is now going to be received by that partner for the rest of their life. So that's the way it works. It sounds too good to be true, I was told a few times in my career. But that is absolutely the way it works. And we work with the best providers, the best companies that make these, okay? And we're always looking at all of them to make sure we're getting the best possible contract for you so that you're getting the most possible income. They have some other benefits. There's some living benefits that allow you, for instance, if you have to go into a nursing home, we have a doubler in them. What's that mean? That means that the income that you're getting can double if you have to go into a nursing home. So there's that sort of thing. There's accelerated death benefits if in fact you're going to pass in less than a year, if the doctor says that. There's all kinds of other benefits that can continue, so are in there. So those are things. So this is for people that don't want to lose money. This is for people that want to know they're insured up to $250,000 a year, or $250,000 per account. So they want that kind of surety. They want very much to feel secure when they go to bed at night. They want to be able to sleep. When they go to the mailbox, they want to be able to count on that money being there every month. Now you can get paid once a month, you can get paid once a year, whatever you want, and it can start immediately. That's the beauty of the whole thing. You can replace income. From the moment you start, you can start the income. So I want you to think about that. Give me a call. We can talk about it on the telephone. You can come in and I can show you examples. And rest assured, I've been doing this for a very long time. This is a product group that I've been working with for over a quarter of a century. So it's not anything new, except that the newer ones are more advanced and better made and so forth and so on. New and improved, as they say. So please call me. If you want to get something that works for sure for the rest of your life, you want income, and you want to know that your spouse is going to get the income if something happens to you. Absolutely. And instantly, there is a death benefit that's left afterwards. So whatever is not used will go to your heirs. So, it's got all the bells and whistles that probably you can think of. We've added a number of them through the years. So give me a call, Mike Newmeyer. Let me give you my phone number again. In my website, you can go to the website, Game Plan for Retirement. You can find our information there. You can download some of the old shows and so forth on different topics. My phone is 410-902-0464. 410-902-0464. Please call me. Let me help you. If we're not in the office, leave me a telephone number and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Meanwhile, God bless you, and I'll look to talk with you next week. Folks, I want to share some examples with you on this plan. Here's an example. If you're 65 years old, we can get you 7.5%. So if you put 100 in, you're going to get $7,500 a year for every 100,000 at 65. Now, the older you are going into the plan, the bigger the percentage will be. So it could be 8 or 8.5 or 9, whatever. So, keep these things in mind, and I'll be happy to run calculations for you and show you what you would actually be getting. But this is a very, very strong number. Very strong number. And interest rates are going to be going down, so it's not going to always be this way. So take advantage of what is out there today. Get started. Again, 410-902-0464, Mike Newmeyer, 410-902-0464. See you next week.